early man began his worship in simple ways. The animals he saw, or feared, or killed, or used, became totems, symbols of his tribe. Nature was fearful, unpredictable, unknown, bigger than himself. He wanted to live, but life was a mystery. He pleaded for it. The mother who gave birth to that life was venerated into little figurines. Death was fearful too, and led to a form of ancestor worship. The remains were buried in earthenware pots, which in turn were covered over by a mound of earth and stones. Examples of these megalithic burials still exist. To appease the gods, we formulated elaborate rituals of sacrifice. The familiar roadside shrines you see are a memory of that past, still alive. It was the Buddha who changed these forms of worship, who set us off on our rather exciting road to temple architecture. His remains and those of his disciples were buried at places made holy by his presence, in hemispherical stupas, a shape growing directly out of the earthenware pot. Around the main stupa, there gradually developed the Chaitya hall for worship, with its beautiful vaulted roof. This expanded further to rooms all round for monks and finally to the Buddhist monasteries themselves. But something happened to these starkly simple structures. They began to flower in periods of prosperity, encrusting the walls and pillars, roofs and ceilings with a people's expression. Stories from the Buddha's life came to live forever in stone. The earlier sculptures avoided his image. He was shown by his feet. The expression in stone was many-sided, devotional but highly skilled, mixed with an overwhelming desire to create. This must have been how Ellora was born. 18 miles northwest of the town of Aurangabad, dug into the side of the hills, once known by the Jains as Charandari, or celestial regions, are a beehive of caves, Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain. Hiding deep in the earth, a vast amount of wealth, hiding almost as if only those who seek the wealth of the spirit should find it. There is just one exception, one monument open to the sky. Kailash, also known as Rang Mahal. This moment of glory came to us more than 1,000 years ago in the reign of Krishna I of the Rashtrakutas. Some remains have been found which give evidence of a city in the hills near Kailash, although nothing tangible is visible today. Our meager knowledge tells us that the early Buddhist caves, monasteries and stupas were built along the main trade routes. This was the experience of Sanchi, of Karli, and this makes sense because wealth was spent near to where it was made in abundance. There must have been other minor considerations of site. Water was vital. The villages around must be fertile, must sustain the monasteries. But most important of all would be the nature of the rock itself. You cannot chisel away at any type of rock without accepting defeat. The basalt rock at Ellora is a perpendicular outcrop, which means it runs at right angles to the ground. This makes the vertical cutting comparatively easy. The rock lies in horizontal layers. A whole layer can be removed. This is not to minimize the effort involved in Kailash. The conception is unique, the skill and execution beyond compare. Three trenches have been cut from above through three sides of the hill to a depth of 107 feet. The measurements of the entire structure are 164 feet by 109 feet and rising to a height of 96 feet. This includes the main shrine, a 16-pillared mandapa, a Nandi mandapa, and the gopura or entrance. The main shrine is unassuming, in the tradition of the early Gupta temples of the north. It is difficult to believe that such a meticulous ground plan could be worked out without the ground in sight. The first floor plan, every inch of detail in it had to be fixed firmly in the mind before the cutting could begin. A hill had to be carved, nature to be transformed in accordance with the architect's vision. Scooping out too much would be an error impossible to correct. But man's dreams do come true. And Kailash was ready so that man should never forget this fact, but strive ever to reach the impossible. It can be done. Nandi sits in its mandapa in constant devotion to its Lord. The first floor, we enter the main shrine. The mind is still unprepared. It wanders, searching to the ultimate. A cross-section shows the elaborateness of the plan which had to be followed throughout the cutting and carving. It was in about the 6th century that experimentation in Hindu temple architecture began, first imitating the Buddhist models, then developing a distinctive style. Kailash is a culmination of this trend, and a beginning of another, because here, almost for the first time, the northern and southern schools meet. The main entrance faces west. Most of our temples face east, but Kailash was dictated by the facing of the hill. The scooped out stone must have rolled down. The rock which remains turns into the world we know. It is a world where men and gods mingle without fear. Gajalakshmi preserves her secret of wealth. Dwarpals or doorkeepers stand guard. In the courtyard to the left of the temple stand the three river goddesses, the supreme Ganga with the Yamuna and the Saraswati by her side. Mothers not of men but of civilizations. deeper and deeper into the caves to the left, which, judging from changes in architectural style, were cut later than the main temple, coming up to the hall on the first floor, known as Lankeshwara. Again, it is a question of conjecture. Nothing remains which could tell us what the different sections of the temple were used for. Perhaps this was a hall for dancers to perfect their art in, to shed their earthbound illusions and draw their inspiration from the Lord of all dance, the great Shiva. This was inside, this frenzy of creation. We are now in the northern part of the cloistered corridor, which has been cut along the three sides of the courtyard. Ravana and Shiva and Parvati, Kuber and Markanda. These are not just endless names and endless statues, but a part of that tradition which is the soul of India. We may not worship them, we may not love them, but we understand them in their infinite moods, in their wisdom and their folly, in their examples of vice and virtue, of anger and submission, or of love as the mighty Shankar weds the gentle Parvati. In the southern courtyard, two more caves, one going up to a height of 3 stories. This is known as Paralanka. It has large halls, but little sculpture within. Perhaps this was with some purpose, to escape for a while from the throbbing world of stone. For that is what it is, giving voice to the emotion of many ages telescoped into one experience. This last of the caves has the delicacy of a miniature, so much smaller in size. Cut into the outer wall of the main temple facing south is a record of the Ramayana. For the first time, our epics and Puranas have been sculpted. Although by the time of the Guptas, the secular character of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, had disappeared, this is the first concrete representation of this change in their status. They join the world of gods and goddesses. Vishnu, they say, he dreamt our world into being. Was Kailash also the dream of a single man, of Krishna of the Rashtrakutas? Or was it the dream of an architect eager to reconstruct nature, change a hill into his dream? Or did the proud Rashtrakuta wish to commemorate his supremacy by doing the impossible, making a Mount Kailash on earth equal to the gods, yet open to the sky so that the gods could see it? This is sheer fantasy, of course. We know too little. Yet, when the frenzied Ravana shakes Mount Kailash and the great Shiva sits unperturbed, one is suddenly aware of one fact, that if man strives for perfection, it is within his reach.